we have a few here, and if you look at all of these, almost all of them are quite positive, right? Cooperation, acceptance, tolerance, test. Well, that's an interesting one. Let's get back to that one. Culture, harmony, creativity, peace and harmony, respecting difference. They're all kind of positive. So I'm going to return back to that. Dangerous here. In a little while, but I'm going to go to a different PowerPoint for now. If I can find it. Okay, good. That's not the one I want. Unity and Diversity Canada, that probably is the right one, right? I'm going to give a brief summary of what we covered 2 days ago, because some of you weren't there, and some of you who were there might have been unconscious. Why do people do that? Why do you applaud when you get a garland? I'm still trying to figure that one out. Like, well, maybe after you speak, you throw the garlands. Anyway, so this is gonna be quick because I'm going through what because if you missed it 2 days ago, it's your problem, not mine. But we talked about. Can you see if I stand here?
No.
All right. Well, anyway, we talked about different. Unity and diversity is everywhere. Krishna himself, there's a different Krishna in Dwarka, Mathura, and Vrindavan. Achintya Beda Beda Tattva, there's 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas, but they're all Vaishnavas. The Gaudiya history, there's Mahaprabhu's followers in Vrindavan, in Puri, and in several places in Bengal, but they're all followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In politics, we talked about how Nehru and Gandhi used the term, and Modi has used the term recently. The EU's motto is unity and diversity, even though they lost the UK. In devotional communities, we're challenged with unity and diversity. In families, we have mother, father, sister, brother, and they're one family. ISKCON governance, and what we've talked a little bit about last time, but just in our own minds, trying to figure out and deal with unity and diversity. So the basic concept we talked about, just like in an orchestra, there's so many different instruments, right? But they all work towards one goal. Car part is a good example. Some people pick up on this one. The parts are actually not the important thing in one sense in a car. Because if you have all the parts except the steering wheel, big problem. Or only 3 tires. And we talked about the EU. The hand, right, 5 different fingers, but they all work in unison. And of course, Varnashram, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra. I gave the example that in my office in DC, when the maintenance people went on strike for a week, we couldn't even live in the building after 3 days. It smelled so badly. So, so-called Sudras are just as important as so-called everybody else. And philosophically, Prabhupada talks about we're all expansions of the Lord, and this is unity and diversity. And he taught this famous quote that Lord Chaitanya confirms the Bhagavatam on the strength of Achintya Beda Beda Tattva, that the Supreme Lord is simultaneously one with and different from creation. That's unity in diversity. And we talked briefly about just what the words mean. Achintya was the key, where somebody was saying, well, I don't understand Achintya Beda Beda Tattva. I said, yeah, it's Achintya. You're not supposed to understand it. It's actually inconceivable. Yeah. And the Advaitins, they only want abheda, non-difference. The Madhvacharyas especially really focus on Beda. The soul and Krishna are separate, and we say Achintya Beda Beda Tattva. Okay, then talking about getting real, and Prabhupada talks about if we keep Krishna in the center, there will be agreement in varieties. That is called unity and diversity, and just how important that is to Prabhupada. And then he says, therefore we should meet every year, the leaders in Mayapur, and discuss this every year. But if we fight because of diversity, that's the material platform. So he says, please try to maintain the philosophy of unity and diversity, and then this is really important. That will make our movement successful. And he's, oh, whoops, wrong way. Okay, so then we talked about, where does diversity come from? Well, Krishna creates it. We think differently because of our previous purva samskars from different lifetimes, our cultural upbringing, our familial upbringing, our education, our values, attracted to different modes of material nature. We talked about mode of goodness. You tend to see the oneness of things, the unity, and passion makes you see the differences. You focus on this one's different than that one's different than that one. That's what the mode of passion actually forces our consciousness to think like. And therefore, we do not see things as they are, we see things as we are. Ta-da! That's the mantra for today, or yesterday. And we said, what do you see? And so many people said, he won, he's upset, he's happy, he won the tournament, this and that. And one person who took my course before said, I see a blue and white headband, I see a Nike sweatband. In other words, when I said, what do you see? People immediately jumped to interpretation. We heard about this today in the previous class, someone mentioned it. So it's really helpful to know what we're doing at any given time. Are we just neutrally observing? Are we interpreting? Are we even going further than interpreting and evaluating whether it's good or bad? Right? And we gave this example that Parvati, she jumped from observation to interpretation to evaluation in a few seconds. Right? And she immediately said, I'm going to curse him. Because she saw that Chitraketu was kind of smiling and she interpreted that he was criticizing, and she evaluated, he's going to suffer. And she cursed him. And similarly, Parikshit Maharaj, I don't know how long he waited for Samak Rishi to see if he was faking a samadhi or not, but he also went through those three very quickly. And you see in both cases, of course, Krishna's arrangement, but there was devastating effects, just based on not sticking to just the observation, but rather making all kinds of assumptions. All right, so this is what I wanted to start with today. We talked about this 2 days ago, but this idea of homophilia, the tendency to form connections with people similar to ourselves. Okay? And then Prabhupada also uses the term swajati. Friendship should be cemented, I like that word, cemented between persons with mutual interests and understanding. Such persons are said to be swajati. So yes, we tend to like to associate with like-minded persons, isn't it? Yeah? Okay. But there's a challenge with that. If Prabhupada's saying that unity and diversity is going to make this movement successful, and if we just focus on the diversity that we like, how are we going to make the movement successful? So that's why unity and diversity, although there was all these kind of nice positive words about it, I think it's a total pain in the neck in some ways. Because it means we have to work with people that we don't like, or maybe we like them theoretically, but they have a totally different worldview than us. At least it seems that way. But Prabhupada is saying, please try to maintain this philosophy. So if you know Hindi, kya kare? What to do? Right? It's tricky. So let's talk about the obstacles. So I think there's a great unity in diversity challenge. And that is how to understand and deeply adopt unity and diversity, because that's what's supposed to make our movement successful, when it ain't easy to do. Right? So, you meet a devotee who has a vastly different Krishna conscious worldview than you. right? Maybe they have a, just a different idea of what ISKCON is like. Just like, we're hearing from Malati Devi and Guru Das Prabhu about the early days in ISKCON. And, for many people who joined in those early days, ISKCON was far out. It was anti-establishment. It was cool. And some people today, many people today, do I need that? No, I'm just asking. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Your voice projects.
Yes, it does. Thank you. Many people today join ISKCON because it's such a nice, conservative, Vedic organization. Right? It's like, whoa, we belong to the same organization. Right? Or they have a different outreach. Let's say you've been cultivating, you've been doing outreach in your city, and you've been, maybe, using some creative things, maybe having some yoga asanas in the beginning, and then, talking more about bhakti and devotion. And then a traveling preacher comes along, and he or she wants to give class, and they want to give fire and brimstone, They want to say, you're not your body, you are a dog, hog, camel, or ass. Which one is it? Right? Or is it all four? Right? And they say, you're wasting your human form of life. They show you the fifth canto, and they say, which one of these principles are you not following? Look what happens to you. Right? Anyone ever seen that? That's how I was preached to in '76 by the Radha Damodar bus party, by the way. So, yet, unity and diversity is going to make our movement successful. Yet, you wouldn't want that person to go 100 miles close to the people you're bringing to Krishna consciousness, maybe, right? Or, I was trying to think of some, I didn't want to get into like ISKCON politics and the latest controversy, so I was trying to think, let's say, like at our temple in DC, and I see, like, it seems like in the whole country of Canada, what is it, compostable? Is that the right word? And not, and then you take, you're cultivating people, and you take them to another temple, and it's all styrofoam, right? And that's a difference in diet. You go up to the temple president and say, why are you using styrofoam? Well, Prabhupada said that, Prabhupada, I don't know if you saw his 22nd Avenue diary, he kept track of every penny. And styrofoam is so much cheaper than this other, environmental crap. Well, he might have been nicer than that, this environmental stuff. So we're going to follow Prabhupada. And you're trying to, and all your people that are with you say, this is a Hare Krishna temple, So there's stuff like this, and what to speak of, other things that I'm not, bringing up. So and what are the limits to unity in diversity? When does it become, as Jai Advaita Maharaj says, unity in perversity? I didn't say it. It's Maharaj. What can I do?
That sounds like something he said.
Yeah. So I was thinking of breaking us into groups, but I'm thinking what we'll do. I have another exercise that will be kind of cool in just a few minutes. So maybe just what do you all think? I say you. I remember I say you all. I'm from the south side of Great Neck in New York. Yes.
I found that
The answer to these two questions. Yeah.
vastly different. It's very hard to stay in this Krishna conscious movement because you have so many differences with so many people. I see that many people don't make it
Right.
because of their interactions with diverse people, and they just can't handle it, and they go away.
So they can't handle it. They go away.
Like I've never met such a variety of people in my life since I joined Hare Krishna. I know somebody who murdered Jaya Tirtha, and I know somebody who met the Queen of England.
There you go.
And everything.
And it's not the same person, right?
No.
Oh.
I never would have met either one of those.
You never know, right? You have to ask. Be curious, not judgmental. Right? Yeah. Well, yeah, I get that. By the way, I work for 2 international organizations, and they have similar challenges that we do. But we know so many people in ISKCON, yeah. But I like your point. And so how do you deal with that? And Prabhupada's saying this will make our movement successful. But that's a great point. But you heard what Mataji said, right? That, just, it can really disturb your mind. We know that from the Nectar of Instructive Devotion, that, Kamsa was much more absorbed in Krishna than many of the devotees. Right? Because when you think about your enemies or people you disagree with, sometimes it's a lot more focused than some of your good friends. Isn't it? Anyone have that experience? It's just me. Okay. Few people. Even someone younger than us. Me. I was with three of the devotees from, what is it called in Toronto? It's not called Krishna House, it's Bhakti Academy. I was sitting with three of them, and I got this realization. Add up all of their ages, and it's still less than mine. What else? Thank you. Yes?
I feel like if we respect the differences, that may help.
If you respect the differences.
Yeah. Kalakanta Prabhu often uses this phrase that one size doesn't fit all, and goes Prabhupada, one size doesn't fit all.
One size doesn't fit all.
What works maybe in one region doesn't work in the other, like what works in East doesn't work in West. Just respecting the differences might help.
Respect. How many of you have ever heard of Aretha Franklin? Okay, now we got a very cultured group here. Yes. So, but she had in one of her songs, she has a really good phrase that we may pass by very quickly. She's a famous song, RESPCT, which spells respect. But then she says, find out what it means to me. It's like the golden rule is to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The platinum rule is do unto others as they would like you to do to them. So RESPCT, find out what it means to me, is a very, high level of respect. So respect everyone. Okay?
I would say we can embrace people with different views, values, as long as those views
Are the same as yours. No, sorry.
As long as their views and values don't exploit or hurt others.
Okay. So you're saying there's variety, but there's boundaries within
Yes.
the variety.
Yes.
Okay. Who else? Lady, we'll go, Madam Lady. Last one, did you?
I find that
Wait, here's mine.
my experience with diversity has been it brings to the table a myriad of different skills and different ways to offer spiritual life to other people. And now that things are becoming digitalized, those things are becoming less important, and so the diversity tends to push itself forward. I mean, it becomes more complicated to appreciate the diversity.
Right. Really, we were talking with some of the older devotees here, and just how, remind me about that. When I go to a community that's having a conflict, the first thing I say, you want me to help? No more emails, no more social media on this topic at all. Zero. If there's any, I'm not coming over there. Because it inevitably, I've never seen a conflict worked out on email or social media. I've only seen it escalate like a what is it, Dushparena Lamena, just. So so we were talking about with some senior devotees, and there were some controversies in ISKCON all along, but you'd hear about them a little bit, or there was this one magazine called Vedic Village Review that we'd get every few months, but we didn't know what was going on because there was no internet, and we were so happy because we were focused on doing our service locally instead of knowing about everything, the latest thing that's going on in Kuala Lumpur. I didn't even know Kuala Lumpur existed when I grew up, So thank you for bringing that up. Now it's just that we're exposed to so much more. Yeah. Yes, Boo.
So if I look at just...
Oh, you need a mic?
No, I think it's right.
Yeah, but I can hear you, but
People at the back.
and also they're recording it.
Okay. So I was just thinking, within an institution, a private institution, you've got a common mission and goal.
Right.
And everyone, whatever backgrounds you have, you come in and you bring your strengths and weaknesses. In ISKCON, you come in from various cultural backgrounds. You go through a Vaishnava etiquette course. which gets you aligned on the externalities.
Maybe, if you take it.
If you take it and if you follow it. But internally, you'd always fall back to your original value system that you grew up with. And that brings, I believe, and I think the best way to do is that everyone has their own contribution to the movement, and they can be in their cliques and niches. But I think there needs to be a higher level leadership which understands this. And like Prabhupada would, he would take the best of those individuals and apply them in the service.
Okay, so you honor the diversity, but you have leadership bringing that diversity together.
Yes.
Bringing it up, not down.
Bringing it up, not down.
Bringing it together.
But you see, it's not easy, right? It's not. I remember a story that could take 20 minutes and 2 minutes. I was helping to manage the ISKCON Vrindavan at one time, and we were talking about the Goshala getting overcrowded. So I said this thing that just seemed like a kid from New York that thought milk came from a grocery store. I just said the obvious, well, we have to stop breeding the cows. And one devotee who grew up in a village in Bihar said, Prabhuji, he got really angry, that's sinful. And I was like, what? It's just practical. There's not enough room, you stop breeding the cow. And he grew up understanding that if you stop a cow from breeding, that is sinful. And that was his, and I was like, what are you talking about? And we worked things out eventually, but talk about different cultures clashing, Long Island's a little different than the village in Bihar, slightly. Yeah. Yeah, so there's yes, Krishna.
I was just, it's been discussed at the GVC level. It's been discussed at the GVC level about the example of the Catholic Church, and they have the Franciscans and the Jesuits and everything. So there are all these little splinter groups that were kind of heading outwards from the Catholic Church, and they managed to kind of encapsulate them and bring them sort of back into the fold, but in their own little area.
Yes, as long as they kiss the ring.
Yeah, and maybe that's some way of dealing with diversity, but still keeping them united.
Yeah, well, and we're going to get to that either today, if there's time, or tomorrow morning. But yeah, about how it applies within this organization. So it is a challenge, right? I think we came up with that, and I really like what Uttaramantaji said, it can actually make you go pretty crazy sometimes, for somebody. And it may be, some of the things that really make us go crazy is they are outside of the boundaries of reason of, Vaishnava etiquette or Krishna consciousness. Right? So so those boundaries are important. I think the key is that the boundaries shouldn't be like this. Many of us put the boundaries like this, whereas it's probably more like this. I always love this statement by Prabhupada. In the vase are a variety of flowers, and that variety helps us better appreciate the idea of flowers. That is called unity and diversity. Our students come from different backgrounds, but because they are all in Krishna consciousness, they are unified. So I don't know much about flowers. I think I know that this one's a rose. I don't know anything else. Does anyone know the names of any of these other things?
Mom's daisies.
Mom's daisies.
There's a tulip in there.
There's a tulip in there. Okay, and it's not even from Holland. Yeah. Yeah. So this is what Prabhupada was talking about, and they're all kind of pretty, right? Yeah. Yeah. So, how can we appreciate the other flowers? So we're going to do a little kinesthetic exercise. Everyone stand up and go to the back. And to my left, all the way near the saris and other clothing. All over here. Come on down.
1990, right? Yeah. 90.
All right, so look. You all, hey, wait, guys, ladies, women, look at these people, and you all look at those people. They look.
No gray hair.
And just for the fun of it, if you were born after the year 2000, stay there. And if you were born between 1990 and 2000, come over here. Okay. 2000. All right. Very good. Okay, ladies, come back now. Okay, so the next category, Shelby, quickly. If you're the kind of person who is rarely on time, go over there. Yeah, oh, by the way, you have to be very honest for this exercise to work. If you're rarely on time. No? Okay, so this is these are oops. Okay, come on back. All right. All right, now, so this is a little more serious now. A little more serious now. Okay. If in your life, this is subjective, but in your life, if you feel that you have overcome some great adversity in your life, please come over here. Wow.
Overcome or gone through. There's something ever gone through.
Okay. Well, this is, boy, Canadian people are really have a lot of adversity. No, let's serious. I should be serious. So look at this group. Look at this lesser group. Okay, come on back. Yeah. If you were growing up, if you were a class clown, go over there. You're a real joker. You like to make fun and crack jokes and things. If you were a class clown or clown, go over here. Not too many class clowns. All right. You can congratulate each other for being class clowns. Very good. All right. Come on back. Just a few more. Again, a serious one. If you have, as a child in work, and hopefully not, but even in Islam, if you felt that you've ever been bullied, please go over here. Okay, so look at all these great Vaishnavas here. The ones that haven't. So these are all devotees who at one point in time in their life, they've been bullied.
Are the bullies on the other side?
Okay? And just two more. Just two more. So look at the variety here. Obviously you can see the point, right? The diversity. Some people who've been bullied have always been on time, right? Some people who were class clowns were born before 1990. Right? There's a variety here. One more. If you ever have been to Sri Vrindavan Dham.
Physically, right?
Not Vrindavan. Okay.
Gokula, not Goloka.
Yeah. All right, so some who haven't been to Vrindavan yet, some people have been to Vrindavan. Okay, go back, one last one. Yeah. Did I say the last one? Yeah. I lied.
Anyone who's ever never lied, go over there.
Okay, and last but not least, if in your hearts of heart you want to love Krishna, go over there. Okay. All right. So, what are your thoughts after what are your thoughts about unity in diversity? The last one unites us. Last one unites us. Right? And that's what Srila Prabhupada, quote Prabhupada said, that because they're all in Krishna consciousness, therefore they work together. Okay. Resolution, they call it the superordinate goal. The goal that it goes above fighting over preaching techniques and pizza or pakoras. I once wrote a paper called Pizza or Pakoras, reconciling liberal and conservative differences in ISKCON. If you need some good bedtime reading, put you to sleep, I can forward you.
Was the word ordinate? What was the word ordinate?
Superordinate.
Ordinate.
Yeah, superordinate. I don't think I'll play this because I'm not sure. I didn't test to see if but our Gorgopal Prabhu, it's half Hindi, half English, but he's talking about chonk, And what goes in a chonk? A good chonk?
What is a trunk? I was gonna say,
No, the thing was ghee. I know ghee. Cumin? Chili? Chong. Yeah. Okay, all kinds of good stuff, right? Yeah, okay, all kinds of good stuff. And it's really what makes the upma taste nice, is what makes the khichdi taste nice. What else do you use it? Dal, yes, it really is the ingredient, right? So that's the idea, that unity and diversity. There's all these different elements of it. Am I pronouncing it right? Chonk? Yeah, okay. Right, but it has one goal. It has one goal, to make that dal, make that upma, make it really tasty. And he does it a really nice way. I just said, I didn't want to mess around with technology if you can't hear it, But he's a clever speaker. No, you can't hear that, right? Yeah. How many of you cook this? Oops. So, when we were doing the exercise that Partha and Uttara Prabhus were doing today, sorry. It reminded me of years ago, Gaur Govindamar was giving a series of lectures in Gitanagari. And just like earlier with Bhakti Bharg Swami, he kept on calling me Braj Vilas. And he kept on picking on me, like, what do you think, Braj Vilas? What do you think? And finally, the last day, somebody said, his name is Vraja Vihari. He said, so I've changed his name. When I was working with Native Americans, American Indians, indigenous people, I would travel a lot. And one time I had to travel to Oklahoma City to go to a place called Anadarko, which was a reservation. And I got in there late at night, and government employees are only allowed to rent economy cars. Like these little, not the smart cars, those are really small, I saw one out there. But anyway, nothing fancy, plain vanilla cars. But this place only had one car left, and it was a red Mustang convertible. Yahoo! Right? And they had to give it to me at the economy rate because it wasn't my fault, right? So I was like, it was great. I was driving down to Oklahoma on the darko the next day with the top down, sunglasses on. So I got to the place, and I got my computer out, went to the conference room, set up my computer with and the PowerPoint and all that, and no one showed up. Yeah, no one showed up for the training. So I waited 10 minutes, 20 minutes, a half hour. Finally, I went to the supervisor and I said, I'm ready. And he had this little body language. And he said, we canceled the training. I said, what? I just flew from Washington, D.C. to Dallas, switched planes to Oklahoma City, And I said, what? He said, yeah, well, we are so sick and tired of hot shots from D.C. like you. If you know the history, not that you should study American history, it's a third world country, but Native Americans haven't had a lot of success with older white guys with gray hair from Washington, D.C. over the last 200 years. So he had kind of a preconceived idea, and I said, well, what's going on? He said, we follow all the government rules, and who the hell do you think you are renting that fancy car on government money? And I said, finally I explained what happened. We had a good laugh that went on, but he made an assumption based on the car. And I don't know, the exercise that you two did, I wonder, because in our group we had 4 people, and 2 of the situations that people were talking about in your exercise were about assumptions and making a wrong assumption. I had one just last night, and I told the story, and then another devotee told the story about him and his wife having a different miscommunication and him basing assumptions on the lack of communication, et cetera, et cetera. And I wonder, I would assume, there's another one, that a number of you also, because assumptions are the number one cause of conflict in the world, and that includes confirmed in ISKCON. So, and this is kind of how assumptions work. It's considered like a ladder, right? Like if I was here today and I had dreadlocks down to here and a tie-dye t-shirt like Krishna Das wears.
What are you assuming about him?
Very good. Would you make an assumption about me?
Yeah, Rastaman.
Yeah, man, yeah, right? Or if I, came, I don't know, with this works better in a non-devotee audience, but like a $4,000 Armani suit, you might make some assumptions. So we make assumptions about the way people dress, the cars they drive. We told 2 days ago, about when Vibhishana came to see Lord Ram, and people made assumptions about him because of his birth as a demon family, his association hanging out with demons all day, right? And do we make assumptions about people by who they hang out with? Yeah. The car they drive, right? You see someone driving a Hummer, what do you assume? Environmentalist. Just seeing if you're awake. This is the hardest time, 3 o'clock after lunch. Yeah. So it only takes a second to go up that ladder, to go from observing the world neutrally to selecting some data like the red Mustang, making an assumption I paid more for it, drawing a conclusion, hot shot from DC, and taking action. In this case, they temporarily canceled the training. Right? It only sometimes takes. How long did it take Parvati to make her assumption, or Parikshit Maharaj, or who is it, Satyajit, who assumed Krishna had killed Prasenna to get the, and on and on. How about that assumption? My wife pointed this one out to me the other day. Ashvatthama is dead. I just assumed that meant the human being, not the elephant, right? Yeah. So assumptions. So how do you deal with these things? And we talked about this the other day. Be curious, not judgmental. Be curious, not. That's one of the ways. We're going to talk about a few. But again, I'm sorry to repeat those for those of you who were here 2 days ago. But if Parvati just would have said, Chitraketu, Hare Krishna, are you making fun of my husband? And what would he have said? No. Hell no! No, please, no, he's a great son. Right? And then we would have lost the whole Vitrasura story and all that. But anyway, but you get the idea, right? Or if Maharaj Parikshit would have just, waited a little while and Samak Rishi, I was here. I'm assuming that you were faking it, but what's going on? He said, no. Right? So, or Satyajit would have asked Krishna, did you kill Prasenna? Right. Yeah, because and we jump to I think that jumping to conclusions should be like an Olympic sport. We jump to them so easily. So I won't show you this video. This is Ted Lasso, and he's quoting, "Be curious, not judgmental."
Ooh, can you put the mic there so we hear? No, we hear enough.
Oh, you mean the video? He means the videos.
Yeah.
He wants to see some Karmi TV shows. We know you. Is that an assumption?
That's an assumption.
That's an assumption. Very good. Just check. Well, if we have time later, I'll do it. How's that sound?
Oh, you're not going to.
Not now, but keep it on standby. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Well, I've been speaking a lot. Questions, comments, thoughts so far? I don't know. You like a lot of Karmi television.
So, I'm sitting here listening to you say all of this stuff,
And then I hear about this person is not allowed to travel there, that person is not allowed to preach there, and this is the ISKCON that I live in today.
And this is what?
This is the ISKCON that I live in today.
Yes.
So what to make of all of this? Like, I feel like you're being hypocritical.
All right, Hartwell. No, no, no. It is a challenge to manage an organization and to balance different values, right? Bless you. You know, we talk sometimes about the principle in negotiation and conflict resolution. Like, for example, if somebody says they're vegan, right, and you're preaching to them, you want to know upon which principle are they vegan, right? If they're vegan because of health and you start preaching about ahimsa, right, or vice versa, right? So there's different principles, and this kind of came up in the presentation this morning by Maharaj, right? Because a few of us, Partha Prabhu, myself, and Praharna Prabhu, all three of us were like fantastic forgiveness, and we thought it was a great presentation. And I know Mahatma gives a great presentation. And we were, you know, those interesting creatures. You ever heard of them? They're called yeah-buts. Yeah, but right, you know, and we wanted to. All three of us kind of wanted to present yes, forgiveness and all that. However, there's also some other considerations, right? And Partha Prabhu was quoting the Mahabharata, and Praharna was quoting her experiences with counseling devotees. And you don't want to go up to a devotee and say, you have to forgive, it says so in the 13th canto. Right? So there's different values, for example. Different values, right? One is, and I've seen this a lot because I was dealing with one of those cases where a devotee was restricted from certain things. And it was very interesting to watch. Because there were some people who say, you know, the devotees in general want to see us uphold Dharma. And they were very, you know, Dharma, you know, and they quoted the Mahabharata, that, what is it, something Paro Dharma, Dharma is the highest virtue in Kali, you know. And they were really saying, that's what ISKCON devotees want to see, that we uphold Dharma. And then the same group that was deciding on this individual saying, devotees want to see us dealing compassionately with a person that's served for so many years. Right? And there is, I don't think, maybe tomorrow we could talk about polarity management, but how to try to get the best of both. But it is tricky. And one of the biggest challenges, and this goes to in our group, the one who's talking about the husband and wife situation, communications. See, if you only hear so and so's been restricted from leading a kirtan for the next year, you just think, man, they're so cold-hearted. But it would probably have been good to say they've been restricted for not leading kirtan for a year, and these were the things we thought about. We thought about this, we thought about that, we tried to compare those, and we thought this would be a reasonable compromise. And then some people at least would say, okay, at least it wasn't just a capricious decision. So sometimes it's tricky because there's different things coming into play.
But in an organization, can you share all of those things at all?
That's the trick. And that was my big problem working for the government, because there's something called that a person complains to me, and I work out something that they, let's say, their boss at first wanted to fire them, and we do negotiate, and we do 2 weeks without pay. But that's confidential. You're not allowed to tell the person that complained what happened, and they just think the person's on vacation. So it's really tricky. And the same thing in our society. That person might not have liked to splash the whole consideration, or he might have. So it's a challenge. I'm not saying ISKCON gets it right all the time. I'm just saying that sometimes there are various considerations. TK? Oh, okay, 1, 2.
Just add a follow-up question to this question. So what you just explained about communications,
Yeah.
isn't it like that's diplomacy? Is that diplomacy?
It can be. Is diplomacy bad or good?
Yes, okay, I guess that's the question, that is that kind of diplomacy good for a spiritual organization? Because, yeah, I think that's just a big question on my mind.
Well, sometimes words are called emotionally toned words. The word diploma or politics sounds bad, but who was quoting the first canto? I think you were quoting the first canto in your presentation. First canto is full of politics, and Prabhupada even writes in the purport that politics is spiritual when it's connected with Krishna. But we think, oh, he's playing politics, so we have to be careful about the words we use. But communication is what happens if there's a lack of communication, if there's a vacuum, is in Kali Yuga people tend to assume the negative. They tend to assume the negative. So when I train new supervisors in the outside organizations or new leaders in ISKCON, I say, if you knew how much communication you had to do to avoid miscommunication, you'd never want to be a leader. And you're a leader. Because any vacuum, people tend to assume the negative. It's just Kali Yuga. It's like that, generally. So communicating, it should be honest communication. So if you're using diplomacy in the sense of say whatever pacifies people, honest or dishonest, yeah, we should avoid that. But even then, how you choose your words. There was a decision recently about a devotee that went out all over the internet, and one of the concerns was just the choice of words. It sounded a little harsh. Yeah, so
You said emotionally toned.
emotionally toned words, yeah. Like a person joins an organization. The organization is just the organization. Some people call it a cult. Some people call it a group of people. It's the same 10 people, or 100 people, or 1,000 people, right? But the different words give a very different impression about the same group. Right? So there's positive emotionally toned words, there's negative right? And insurgents, do they use that sometimes, like when they talk about people, right? And what do they talk? Patriots versus insurgents. They're the same, two people, right? But they're labeled differently. Yes.
What's the first step to not start going up the assumption ladder?
Well, to not go, okay, to catch yourself.
Yes.
And by the way, I should clarify, there's nothing wrong with assumptions. We may confirm, but it drops the phone. They happen all the time. We probably made 10 or 15 assumptions today. And most of them, more than half of them are probably right. But picking up from the last presentation, if they start putting you in fear, in anger, in frustration especially, you might want to see, is that my mind? Or am I making a real negative assumption? Well, what did Mark Twain say? Many terrible things have happened to me in my life. And fortunately, most of them never took place. Right? And anyone a worrier? We asked that the other day. Very few worriers are dishonest people. Raise your hand high if you're a worrier. All right. Worriers unite. I should have said, how many of you worry? What was I talking about?
The first,
Yeah,
my question
so,
was
yes.
how to prevent yourself from climbing.
So
maybe the
catch
second
ourselves,
step, the
catch
second
ourselves.
From going up.
Yeah, catch ourselves from going up. That's great. But once we are up, how to come down. And that is to, I think I talked about one of them. This is my favorite one, to be curious rather than judgmental. And even for myself, or just ask yourself. I think it was in your presentation where you asked, what lessons did you learn? You asked, what lessons did you learn? And one devotee said, I think it was, Prabhuji, go look at, I think it was him. When you verbalize it, it becomes clear in your own mind, right? So lots of times we keep things in our mind, so to be curious rather than immediately judgmental. And then another one is, in general, please remember that I'm using the word in general, so not always, but in general, assume good intentions. In general. Now we know there's been some, devotees that take advantage of other people, and so that's why we say in general, assume good intentions. And even, self-fulfilling prophecy, if you treat people like they have good intentions, they tend to want to rise to that expectation. It's very good with children, it's very good with people in general. There's still going to be some people that want to take advantage of others, so we say in general. And, did I have another one? And we remember, we have these defects, right? It's good to remember that, isn't it? Because our mind, I don't know about you, my mind plays so many games on me. Oh, God, it's frustrating. And it's been going on for almost 67 years. Yikes. Right? It just, and we just forget that we don't remember this as a default. Yeah, I could be wrong. I could make a mistake. My senses are imperfect. Like that. And was there another one? Coming down. Oh, think of other alternatives. I gave the example 2 days ago. Someone cuts in line for prasadam, right? And immediately you think, and you tell your friend, right? But if you think, well, what's a positive? Maybe, like I gave the example, maybe they're making a plate for a guest who's just about to leave, right? Or maybe their blood sugar just, is super low, and they need some carbs right away, else they're going to faint. We don't know. So to think of other possible interpretations. So those 3 things: assume good intentions. 4 things. Remember, we have the 4 defects. Be curious, not judgmental, and think of another possible alternative interpretation. Is that all right? Yeah. And, catch ourselves. Okay, anything else? I don't know how we're doing. We go until 6? That was a joke. 4:30.
4:30.
Okay, yeah, but, everyone else has been given 10 more minutes. No.
We want 10 more.
Yeah, 15.
We want you next year to bring all of your T-shirts on display, up against the wall there.
When I die, I will live to the temple.
There you go. I always wanted to ask you, with that name, have you read the CC like 40 times? Yeah, you have? Oh, you're just messing with your glasses.
I wrote it, I don't hear it.
Okay, so we'll carry on then. This is another one of those things to just keep in mind. That when I speak to you, I know my intention, but I don't know the impact I have on you. And when you speak to me, I know the impact you have on me, but I can't read your mind. I don't know your intention. So in any conversation, for sure, we only have 50%. So it's amazing that we get along as well as we do, actually.
Further research says 30.
30%. Okay, well, there you go. Do I hear 20? This is like one of those auctions in reverse. Right? You can go lower and lower. Yeah, so 30%. It's just, have you ever been talking to someone, you can tell by their body language they don't get what you're saying?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that means our intention is not matching our impact. So it's really good to have good intentions. Anyabilashita sunyam jnana karma navritam, right? That we're supposed to, have pure intentions. And in one sense, that is enough. That's the main verse of the whole Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that's to serve Krishna with anukul, favorably, and not be covered by karma, jnana, yoga, etc. But in terms of Vaishnava sanga, it's necessary but not sufficient. You need to also be able to communicate your good intentions. Otherwise, they might assume the negative. And somebody already did the assume joke yesterday. Yes?
I think this is one of the biggest problems of diversity in the sense of language.
Oh, yeah.
When you're communicating with people who think they speak your language, and they may even be fluent enough in a social situation to get what they need to get done.
Right.
But in a deep situation or meaningful situation or an irregular situation, their language doesn't is not able to express what they need, nor are they able to
Yeah.
understand your intention.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, because I know at the GBC meeting, this came up, and some Indian body, very senior devotees, came to me because I made this statement, and they said, thank you very much for saying that, because some people speak so fast when
Yeah.
they express themselves that I can't understand half of what they're saying. And
Are
it
you
takes me a
telling me
long
to slow
time-
down?
It takes me a long time to process my response, and by the time I process what to respond, someone else is already saying something else.
So my understanding of your intention is that you're correcting me. Is that right? You see? So be curious, not judgmental. Ask her. Was that an indirect, was that a diplomatic way of saying, Braj, slow down? You see, so be curious, not judgmental. This is in action. Yeah, but it's a very, very important point, especially for an international organization. And I don't speak English, I speak American. Problematic. American. Anyone who hasn't raised their hand yet and has a question? Okay, Prabhu.
Prabhu, I was just going to
Oh,
add.
microphone?
Thank you, Prabhu. I was just going to add another layer that not only the communication, but I think the fact that we practice the spiritual path in which Krishna accepts the intention more than the offering itself.
Uh-huh.
So when it comes to Krishna, Krishna knows our heart and the intention, so it's a lot easier. And I personally believe that's why a lot of people are tending to be a little bit more impersonalistic. It's a lot easier to interact with Krishna, but with devotees, the intention and the outcome, the words, the actions, everything has to be aligned. Otherwise, that's where a lot of the conflict comes from.
Sure. And it's not just devotees, it's human beings in general. Yeah. Okay, let's carry on. What's next? So let's talk about ISKCON. Since yay! I think this may be applicable to us. Unity without uniformity, and diversity without fragmentation. Does that sit okay with you? You can dig it? It has a good. Only people born before 1965 would know what I mean when I say it has a good beat and you can dance to it. But anyway, see, Krishna probably was laughing about it, and no one else is. It was an old TV show. Now, let's understand that some of the diversity and different opinions comes from His divine grace. We'll give some examples. I know this is a little small, but it's good stuff. In our Krishna conscious movement, the tactic of dressing oneself like an ordinary karmi, he used the word, is necessary because everyone in the demoniac kingdom is against the Vaishnava teachings. Krishna consciousness is not at all to the liking of the demons of this present age. As soon as they see a Vaishnava dressed in saffron garments and beads on his neck and tilak on his forehead, they are immediately irritated. Next one. In our Krishna conscious movement, fashionable persons are taught to adopt one fashion, the dress of a Vaishnava with a shaved head and tilak. Next statement. Since they have taken to Krishna conscious, their health has improved, and by following the rules and regulations, they have increased their bodily luster. When they are dressed with saffron-colored cloth, with tilak on their foreheads and beads in their hands and on their necks, they look exactly as if they have come directly from Vaikuntha. So Vaikuntha or immediately irritated. Same person. And then as far as the shape, one dress, Prabhupada once saw a picture of Balavanta preaching during a political campaign. Behind him sat the mayor and another candidate. Balavanta wore a suit and tie and tulsi beads. His sika was trimmed and his hair was grown out. When Prabhupada saw the picture, he said, "This is what we want, to preach to in American dress." He said we should be known as American Krishnas. So Prabhupada said different things at different times. And this is one of my favorites. I tell you, I almost closed the Bhagavad Gita and said, "The hell with Krishna consciousness," when I read this in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, right? Where in verse 28 he says, although it is not mentioned here, still one can easily imagine that not only were Arjuna's bodily limbs quivering and his mouth drying up, but he was also crying out of compassion. Such symptoms in Arjuna were not due to weakness, but to his soft-heartedness, the characteristic of a pure devotee of the Lord. The very next purport. Arjuna's symptoms in this situation are out of material fear, namely loss of life, although these are due to the material conception of life. But he's actually making it, I understand now, he's making it, both valid points, different points and different purports that he's making. And of course there's so many more. Varnashram. The Varnashram system is convenient, for convenience sake. It has nothing to do with spiritual life. Varnashram Dharma is essential for human civilization. Brahmananda Swami has read me your letter regarding the students there reading other books. I request you to stop this practice. Within the past, all these great souls wrote books, and serious students would do well to attempt to go through them and better relish the transcendental message. Do not centralize anything. For reasons of spreading Krishna conscious movement, we may sometimes centralize, just like the books and money for BBT are managed by Karandar in Los Angeles. Regarding your seeking permission for selling some leather goods and water pipes, I say yes, you can sell. Swamiji, is wearing leather shoes permissible? No. Leather means violence.
So no one water pipes?
So we would sometimes have, at religious group, we say, have Prabhupada quotes snowball fights. You take this and I take that, and we throw these, yeah, so, what was that?
That's where the backstory helps, but we don't get the backstory usually.
The backstory, yes, thank you, yes. Yeah, and we don't get, Malati Devi is saying so expertly that we don't get the backstory. When we see Prabhupada's letters, we don't know the letter he received. And we don't know the time, the place, and the situation, and the circumstance. As a matter of fact, some really smart guy put that in the next slide. Prabhupada's talking about Desha Kalapatra and different times, but he's not changing the Siddhanta. He's not changing the principles. And even in the the Bhagavatam, you have to understand the Bhagavatam verse. Some verses taken out of context can just mean anything. You have to understand the context. I loved, I didn't love it, but I can't remember the exact quote, but it's almost like one time a devotee had quoted, Prabhupada said, sense gratification is a wonderful thing. And it's a direct quote. But they didn't finish the sentence. They just put ... Prabhupada said, sense gratification is a wonderful thing if you're a dog, hog, camel, or ass. So, it becomes, Bhagavad Gita as you like. Right? Or what did Ratna say? Bhagavad Gita as it is. Stay on the shelf as it is. Yeah. So, but we do get diversity of thought from His divine grace. Let's face it, and it's not a criticism. It's glorious. He was a perfect adjuster of time, place, and so Hari Sari Prabhu tells that story about the sannyasi coming in. Again, I'm making a long story short, and Prabhupada says, "You're a sannyasi. You should travel and preach and stay in one place only more than 3 days." Yes, you'll Prabhupada. And the sannyasi leaves. And Hari Sari's there. Then another Swami, a sannyasi, comes in about a half hour later. And Prabhupada says, "You're a sannyasi. You stay in one place, become the temple president." And again, I'm paraphrasing, so I'm not quoting Prabhupada directly here. But Hari Sari brought it up. He was curious, not judgmental. Right? He said, Prabhupada said, "Well, do you think the spiritual master is a dull stone? He can't give one disciple one instruction for their benefit, and another disciple a different instruction for their benefit." So, yeah. So anyway, my point I think is pretty clear. Some of the diversity that we see in ISKCON is, it's a little, again, only for people who were born before 1965. It's a little like Alice's Restaurant. You can get anything you want else, from Prabhupada quotes. You can pretty much get anything you want. But you have to use them intelligently and fairly. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. I'll do it now just because it's on the topic. In chapter 10, verse 32, Krishna says that I am the conclusive truth. Vada is the Sanskrit. And in the purport, he talks about jalpa and vitanda, which are, without getting into the technical differences, are basically dishonest ways to just prove your point. Whether it's true or not, you just want to prove your point. So when we look at Srila Prabhupada what he said about certain things, we should try to see everything he said and try to understand the context as much as we can, considering we may not have the full context, and actually sincerely look for the truth and sit down with a person who has a very different opinion, who's throwing very different snowballs at us, and say, and if instead of yelling at each other on the internet or whatever, say, well, let's sit down. Now, you say this. Yes, Prabhupada said that. That's really interesting. Prabhupada also said that. Now, how are we going to understand this? We're on the same team here. Right? In mediation, one of the things you're doing is, it begins where it's me against, what's your good name? Harivallabha. It's me against Harivallabha Prabhu, right? But what the mediator tries to do is in the first hour or two, gets it so I'm on the same side as Harivallabha and the problem's over in front of us. And we're working together to solve that problem. So that's the idea. Okay? So let's talk a little bit. Partha Prabhu was saying, aren't there some limits? And yes, it's not unlimited diversity, right? Mayavad, philosophically, there's certain parameters. Sahajya, or taking Krishna consciousness cheaply, there's some parameters. Materialism, of course, there's parameters. And even managerially, Prabhupada, one time I went through, this was kind of it wasn't it was, I used Vedabase, and I just went through Prabhupada's letters, only his letters, and excerpted things that he said about cooperation, and only about managerial cooperation, not like cooperation with Krishna. And I think it came out to 17 pages, and I didn't even get through all of the quotes. It was such an important way that he managed ISKCON by asking us to cooperate. So uncooperation. So there are some guide rails, you might want to say. And similarly, in unity, the movement is for training. There's a famous letter to Karanda Prabhu, training men to be independently thoughtful and competent in all types of departments of knowledge and action, but not for making bureaucracy. Once there is bureaucracy, the whole thing will be spoiled. There must be always individual striving and work and responsibility, competitive spirit, not that one shall dominate and distribute benefits to the others. It was an idea that Jayatirtha Prabhu had at that time. And they do nothing but beg from you, and you provide. And then he also said that each center remain independent. So there's also some limits to unity. So what is it? Unity without uniformity. Now, none of this is easy stuff. That was my realization. Although we had all those sweet words about unity and diversity, Prabhupada's request for us to make the movement successful by unity and diversity is a big challenge. It's not, as Ringo Starr would say, it don't come easy. Got to pay your dues? No, I won't. My mind thinks like a 60s and 70s jukebox, so don't mind. So some practical things. Oh yes, Prabhu, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that it seems there's a connection between unity and diversity and the concept of time, place, and circumstance. So when we're not conscious, we kind of just want to follow somebody or some teaching or something and just apply it to everything. But then being conscious means that everything is dealt with case by case and that we adjust. And so we see that Prabhupada's books were like for the general public, and then the classes were in more specific, and then the letters were the most specific. So each one is for a different audience, and so we have to be aware of like what he said for which audience, because
That takes some skill to apply time. Bhakti Mark Swami was bringing this up in his class yesterday, right? About, just that you have to be relatable to people that you're sharing Krishna consciousness with. Otherwise, what's that saying? If you only have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? So if you just whatever it is, if it's very liberal Krishna consciousness, but that's your only thing, and the person you're talking to actually needs a good dose of "you're not your body," or vice versa. An expert person who shares Krishna consciousness and teaches can adjust according to time, place, and circumstance. And sometimes we might get it wrong, right? Okay, on that happy note. So these are some challenges. Disciples of gurus focused on their guru to the exclusion of others. Including Prabhupada. Okay, well, you can say that, I can't say that. But no, seriously, you have the right to say that as a disciple of Prabhupada. Including Prabhupada, okay. It's kind of like, when I worked for the U.S. government, I worked for the U.S. Department of the Interior, and there's 9 different bureaus, and one of them was the National Park Service. The National Park Service is the coolest one, and everyone wants to work. So National Park Service people practically didn't even know they were part of the Department of the Interior. They had no idea, 90% of them. So sometimes it can be even that extreme that, I have my guru, but ISKCON, what's that? Maybe that's a little exaggerated, but it can be a focus. And of course, there's nothing wrong with being focused on the instructions of your spiritual master. It doesn't mean to the exclusion. Is the governing body commission will be the ultimate managing authority of ISKCON, right? So whether we have to improve things, that's another discussion another time. But it is a challenge because it is Prabhupada's instruction to us. And just bringing devotees worldwide together and not honoring, innovation. Some of us, it's easy to kind of reminisce about the old times, right? But times also do change. And when Prabhupada was asked, how do you know the difference between a principle that should never be changed and a principle and a detail that you can change according to time, place, and circumstance? This is mentioned in the beginning of the 6th chapter of the Nectar of Devotion. Prabhupada said, anyone know? Yes, thank you. That takes some intelligence. What a great answer, isn't it?
Which means super soul.
Super soul, yeah. Prabhupada had such great one-liners sometimes.
But it leaves it open to diversity.
Yeah. Anyone know some other great Prabhupada one-liner I was thinking of is, Prabhupada, is the world flat?
It is everywhere.
Everywhere I walk, except New Vrindavan. Anyone have any more? Anyway, it's kind of a diversion, but he was great at sometimes it's just like.
How many windows on the Empire State Building?
Yes.
Yeah.
And what did he say?
How many drops of water in the mirage?
What a great answer, huh? Just like. So these are just some of the challenges. And some tips. Think globally, but not too globally, but act locally. And just like as we were here, just recognizing that I have these 4 defects, that I get this stuff wrong, that I make assumptions all the time, and I should be, analyzing them or being curious. Just, recognizing our conditioning. And this was the point that I was making before about vada and jalpa and vitanda. Merely trying to defeat one's opponent is called vitanda, but the actual conclusion is vada. This conclusive truth is a representative of Krishna. And this is, sitting down in a sattvic atmosphere. And we've been able to do this sometimes, and it's so transformational. And you can sometimes have people who are just totally at different ends of the spectrum actually have a reasonable conversation. And you start to see how that point that we made at the end, how everyone walks over to this side. Because ultimately, we want to love Krishna. And I just thought I'd add this. It's just one of the best instructions. One of the most impactful instructions I've ever received. It was from Vraja Vihari Prabhu, and he said something to me. He said, at any moment, you can simply ask yourself, in this situation, what's my service? And I have found that really helpful. Sometimes if I hear devotees criticizing, and often I think my service is to walk away, right? Or to change, or to divert the topic. What do you think about that? Pizza roll today. And just get them. But what's my service now? I have 15 minutes free between the next presentation. What's my service now? Find someone to have a nice discussion with. Take a little nap so I'm fresh for the next thing. Get some water, whatever. But I found that to be really helpful in my life, just when I remember to do it, to ask myself, what's my service? And I think that could be also helpful in a lot of different ways. And finally, just some efforts that have been going on. There was an effort to bring all the leaders from around the world to Mayapur every other year. Efforts to bring gurus, GBC, sannyasis together, and I know they didn't invite too many women, Hare Krishna, but I'm just bringing that up. This sanga is an effort of unity and diversity, bringing people together. And this, I don't know if you know about this GBC resolution, but this is kind of a unity and diversity resolution that whereas this kind of has grown into an organization of multifaceted preaching programs, whereas it may not be possible for a single temple or project to cover all such preaching projects, whereas the GBC would like to encourage ISKCON members' individual initiatives to preach, resolve that the multiple ISKCON entities can be accommodated in a particular city or geographical area. Such entities, this is the key sentence by the way, such entities should work cooperatively with existing ISKCON temples and projects. Any concerns that arise in the course of expanding ISKCON's preaching in this fashion should be worked out amongst the leaders of those projects or the zonal supervisors. But the idea that, yes, there are different ways to spread Krishna consciousness. Yes, instead of fighting over which one, let them both exist. Or 3 of them exist, or 5 of them exist. Or in Delhi, what is there, 19 temples? Right, so.
In Toronto, there's over a dozen.
In Toronto, there's over a dozen.
Greater Toronto.
Greater Toronto. What about the not so great Toronto? Sorry. It's the end of the.
Nobody is pleased with your comment.
What's that?
I said that Panchatattva.
It was sliding behind the wall.
Hare Krishna. Krishna's Kaviraj.
I remember in the hermeneutics course, I believe that there was one place where it was stated that if there is disagreement on something that is there, then Prabhupada said you should come together, have kirtan, then read the statement again, and if there's still disagreement, then have more kirtan, and then read again and have more kirtan.
Nice. The problem is that we usually don't come together. Usually communication, especially on social media, email, puts us apart. We stop communicating with the other people. And when we stop communicating, we start assuming. And any little thing they might post, we assume the worst. And then we post something, they assume the worst. And so much of it is just because of a breakdown in communication. So much of it. Oy, kabal.
Every drama that's ever been written is all about miscommunication.
Yeah. And every, you see, you're thinking of Shakespeare because we're here and all that. I think of rom-coms, romantic comedies. Nobody, no. But every romantic comedy has something like that. The woman hears her boyfriend on the call, if she only hears half the conversation, and he's actually talking to his mother or something, and she thinks it's a other girlfriend. It's like classical ways to write a stupid romantic comedy. Yes.
And then,
Microphone?
I'll be loud enough. On that slide where you've written challenges in ISKCON, there's one statement for GBC. I just don't know how is that a challenge. Establishing the GBC as stated in Prabhupada's will. Could you elaborate?
Just that not everyone even knows about it, and not everyone accepts it, and the GBC has gotten so much criticism over the years that it's not really seen in that light by some people, by many people. So really making it the way Prabhupada wanted it. And it's not because of the efforts of great people like Malachi Devi, who worked so hard for so many years on the GBC to try to make it the way Prabhupada wanted it. But it's just, another challenge that I find, and please tell me if you think this is wrong, is a lot of devotees, and senior devotees, maybe even especially, they only have experience of ISKCON. They didn't have a job, they didn't work in corporate such and such, or in a university, or in this or that. And so for me, because I've had that experience, when I see the problems in ISKCON, I just go, yeah, what else is new? It's every organization I've ever worked with. There's communication breakdowns, leadership challenges, this and that. But if we've only experienced in ISKCON, sometimes we think, oh, it's ISKCON that's really bad. But I've been hired by a number of faith-based organizations, and I see, same stuff. Internet problems and leadership questions, and it's tis the age of Kali. So that's not as an excuse for leadership not to come to a higher level. It's not an excuse, but it is that organizational life is tough. It's just even I work for NASA, which is kind of a cool place, right? Rockets, not going to the moon. No. By the way, that one is an interesting one, because sometimes Prabhupada said we didn't go to the moon. Sometimes he said that we did go to the moon, but we just brought back some rocks and spent all those billions of dollars. Sometimes said we went to the far side of the moon, not Pink Floyd's album. Sometimes he said we went to Rahu, and sometimes he says that there's 3 ways to get to the heavenly planets, and one of them is by mechanical means. So he said different things at different times. But anyway, that's an aside. Even NASA seems like a cool place. They have so many conflicts. Oh my God. Engineers and scientists have egos, size of Mount Meru, and there's so many conflicts. Oy, oy. And it's good because it's job security for me.
I have a follow-up question I can ask later on that.
I'm just going to keep going until they give me like that hook. I know, but like one more question. Is that right? Okay.
Just your realizations and reflections are wonderful and really amazing. I was just curious to know that if you've actually experienced these, or if you've just managed these in your work. Like, have you been one of those people whom you were mediating, or with whom you had this communication gap, or these realizations are coming more from managing it?
Well, I've been married 36 years. No, we never fight.
She's so nice.
I just say, yes, dear. She's the daughter of a general, so I say, yes, dear. I salute in the morning.
She's so nice.
No, but seriously, some of them have been my experience, but you know, it was the reason I got involved in this. From 1995, I started going to the GBC meetings, and I saw that they spent a lot of time on conflicts without much, not a lot of success in dealing with them. They took a long time, so I didn't know anything about it. You know, I just said, could I have a $500 grant to buy some books? And one thing kind of led to another. I got introduced to someone who was an expert in the field, and you know, ISKCON Resolve started. But over the years, you know, probably dealt with 900 cases or something like that. Certainly, you learn a lot. And the interesting thing is, on one hand, non-ISKCON entities and ISKCON, on one hand, it's the same. They're human beings, and human beings act like human beings, right? On the other hand, there's definitely differences because ones are devotees, they chant Hare Krishna, they have a superordinate goal of loving Krishna, and these other people maybe not so much. So there are simultaneously some real differences and simultaneously some real similarities. Yeah, like that. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Vraja Vihari Prabhu, for that very thought-provoking presentation. Let's give another big round of applause to Prabhu.